my accident, I found that everything that had defined me, everything that spoke about who I was, got stripped away. I wasn't a student anymore. I wasn't a career man to be, a family man to be. All of a sudden, I was the cripple.
So when I started being able to move and explore movement and figure out what I could do again, it was so exciting because I felt so limited, and I had more of an idea about what my limitations were than what my possibilities might be.
I mean, we have a chance really to change the way people think about spinal cord injury. We have a way to find a cure.
Innovation is made possible by the people of NEC, for over 30 years providing computer, communications, and semiconductor technologies for communities and businesses throughout America. NEC, 148,000 people worldwide committed to the future.
Disability. It can happen to any of us at any time, regardless of age, gender, race, or income. There are 49 million Americans with disabilities. For many people, being able-bodied is only a temporary stage in their lives. I'm Itzhak Perlman. The obstacles disabled people face are as much the result of society's attitudes as the limitations of our bodies. There is often a conflict between what other people think we should do and what we know needs to be done, between the medical model, in which disability is a challenge to be cured, and the independence model, in which the challenge is to make society accessible. Technological advances are helping many of us to achieve more independence. In the first edition of this series, People in Motion, we meet people whose lives and work shatter stereotypes about disability. Dancers who use their wheelchair as part of their choreography, scientists on the quest for a cure for paralysis, and a candidate running for Congress who happens to be disabled. We do not want to be called heroes. We are people first, and our disabilities, well, they're just a fact of life.
Start dancing and you have the feeling that people like the way you move, and you can feel that a lot of the judgment that is usually there when people see me walking is gone, and all of a sudden people are open to just watch and just notice. And that I find very rewarding, because all of a sudden I can start thinking about my body as just something different rather than disabled.
And when we get on stage, people have the opportunity to stare at us. You know, they have permission to sit there and gawk for as long as they like. I think we become human to them in a way that maybe we weren't just if they saw us rolling down the street in a wheelchair and, you know, looked the other way. I think there's a way in which when people see us dance, we stop being other and become just kind of one of the gang on earth.
When I choreograph, the wheelchair and the wheel are clearly an important visual. The way I use the chair gives me the feeling of liberation. It's the feeling of having control to move exactly where you want to move and how you want to get there. Every moment is a wonderful feeling. It gives you the opportunity to glide when you want to glide, go fast when you want to go fast, and stop very quickly.
Technological advances in the design of lightweight wheelchairs allow a freedom of movement once considered impossible for people with disabilities. Joining with non-disabled dancers, this new movement, known as integrated dance, includes performance, workshops, and improvisation.
By the time Access came along in my life, I was just so starved to find ways to move and ways to use my chair that wasn't, you know, locomoting from point A to point B. You know, really figuring out what is this extension of myself and how do I make it move and how do I make it express who I am.
Judy Smith is one of the founding members of Access Dance Troupe, based in Oakland, California.
When we first got together, we really started out improvising and just moving together. And we'd find something, oh, well, that's kind of neat. No, well, that's kind of neat.
I was immediately excited by the idea of the trapeze. I like to go out of the chair and back into the chair and on somebody else and on the trapeze and down on the floor. The contrast between being on the floor where moving is very effortful and you're kind of humbled in a way, to go back on a trapeze and you do just one move and all of a sudden you float for another 2 minutes. I find it very, very endearing to my soul. There are people who've never seen me in a chair because I walk around a lot, and then all of a sudden they see me in a chair and they think I've gotten worse. And it's very confusing for a lot of people to have somebody who has different ways of getting around.
Uli Schmitz is a chemist working in a biochemical laboratory at the University of California Medical Center in San Francisco.
I like science. I like the scientific pursuit because of its problem-solving nature. And on the other hand, there's this desire to be creative, to be physical, to be beyond these structured, rigid forms of perception. And that's why dancing takes me a step further in a different direction. And I found that balance is really important. I grew up on a small farm in a tiny village in the very west of Germany, in a big family. And in 1961, I fell sick with polio. I was walking with canes pretty much all the time. And I had a bunch of friends, and we hung out a lot on the farm, doing all kinds of things, where we wanted to go on a camping trip. And it was clear that it would be very hard for me to get around. And it was actually one of my friends who said, you need a wheelchair. It's very easy. Then we can push you around and you can, go places. And I was not at all liking this idea because I felt I was making myself more disabled. I would be looking more disabled. All of a sudden I gained an independence that I hadn't even dreamt of.
There is a fine wind blowing, the sky begins to clear, seeing new
Excited about the possibilities of dance, Charlene Curtis left her job as a successful public defender to devote her energies to performance and choreography. Her company, Light Motion, is conducting a series of workshops in Seattle area schools.
What we're trying to say to the kids is that dance includes people with all kinds of abilities and disabilities. I danced with Emily, and it was really the high point of the day. The joy of the movement comes out on her face as soon as you start to work with her.
A message to reveal.
I was injured in a gymnastics accident in 1968 on a set of uneven parallel bars. And as my legs snapped down to the ground, I had broken my back and then dislocated the bone and had a spinal cord injury. I was 17. And in all the time that I spent in rehab, I thought that I would be basically getting all of the recovery back that I needed to return to my life the way it was before the fall. And for years, that attitude went on, that if I just keep working out, if I just keep striving in physical therapy, then I will be normal again one day. I went through a period of time, I think, in college when I felt really sad because I was finally beginning to accept that I was going to have to live differently. But at some point, I dealt with it in some fashion because there were things to do, places to go. I didn't really have time just to sit around and feel bad because I had a disability. I do not think of the wheelchair as a separate entity. A lot of people will think about this as, oh, are you wheelchair bound? I do not have a feeling that I'm bound to the chair as much as that the chair and I work as one, and my movement is liberated through the wheels.
Charlene was invited to perform and teach a workshop in movement with dancer Bruce Curtis at a national gathering of disabled performers and artists at the Mark Tabor Forum in Los Angeles.
The goal in a workshop like that is to teach technique so that there's a tool with which the person can work and expand their movement potential because they're using specific techniques of movement like counterbalance work or weight sharing. Probably the bigger thing that we try to teach is the attitude shift that free and liberating movement is an option. People have come up to me after a performance and said, you know, what really amazed me is I didn't see the wheelchair through your piece. And I think they perceive that as a compliment because they're trying to say it's okay that you were in a wheelchair because it didn't bother me or offend me, or I didn't see you as limited because of it. You know, I like to see the wheelchair. I like wheelchairs gliding. I like the visual of it. But however you get the point across that it's about the dance and the art, and if people are not seeing the chair because they're seeing the art, then great. And that changes attitudes.
I think it'll be really great when there's the same expectation of disabled people as there is of non-disabled people. You know, of course you climbed Half Dome. Of course you do kung fu or ski or have a family or have sex or go to school. Of course you do. Instead of, wow, how do you do that?